Okay, well, good evening or good afternoon, everyone. Really appreciate everyone being here for this important webinar. Obviously, it has been a lot of updates and a lot of new things as it relates to supporting our DACA and undocumented students. And really for us in HDF, as the executive director, my name is David Ochoa, and it's really important for us and our mission to know that you're supported by our organization. And that has been the ethos of HDF for over 35 years, is that no matter of your citizenship status, we are there for you. Not only through our scholarship program, which is one of the few in the country that support your your academic dreams, no matter what your status is, but other areas as well. We hired, I think, one of the best college counselors in the area, and Alex Perez, who's on this call, because she has been there, she has seen that, and she's incredibly talented in working with all of our HDF scholars, but also our community of those that want to join you in the HDF Scholars ranks. So it's really, I'm really have the privilege of working alongside of her and hearing all of her great thoughts. But I also have the great pleasure of working with the phenomenal board that we have for HDF, one of which is on this call, Mr. Raymond Rico, who really is an expert in this area. And he is offering his time, understanding that this is an important question and questions for a lot of our students and their families. And so I'm really here just to say, keep doing what you're doing. We're here to support you. Today is only one part of that. There's 364 days of the year that we're there for you as well. So whatever we can do to help you in your journey, break down barriers, help elevate you and your family, HDF is there for you. And certainly I want to turn it over to, as I mentioned, who I think is just an incredibly talented professional who is going to be there for as much as you need her, for as little as you need her, but just a wonderful resource for our community. And we're proud to have her on the HDF team. So I want to turn it over to Alex Perez.
Thank you, David. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Scholars, I really appreciate, I know this is finals week for a lot of you, and it really means a lot that you've set some time aside to come and learn, and that you've shared your questions in advance. You know, as David mentioned, I have been in similar shoes as you. I navigated the higher education system. I was actually undocumented until I was 27. DACA was not around. So, you know, for those of you who have felt as though there is no hope and a lot of doors keep getting shut, we are here for you every day. We will do everything that we can to continue to support you and your families and uplift you. Hopefully these will be good news for a lot of you and your families, having DACA reinstated. So I am really grateful for Mr. Rico for joining us today as well, as he is one of the most knowledgeable people in this complex subject. So we are going to share today some resources, tell you a little bit about how DACA got started, what's happened along the way, what can we expect now. And then at the end, I will share more information about our scholarship and how, you know, it will be reopening up for the spring on January 1st. And we have some other additional community resources. If we do run out of time and you have to go, this will be recorded. So I will send it out to all of you. So again, thank you very much for your time. And without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Raymond Rico. I did just want to mention real quick that a lot of you already know John Carney. He's our Director of Educational Programs. And then, of course, Maria Franco, she's our amazing intern who is open about having DACA status and is happy to chat with any of you scholars in HDF community if you want to learn more about her story. So take it away, Raymond.
Yes, thank you for having me. It's an honor to speak with you today, especially to our HDF scholars, to educators and friends of HDF today. More than anything, I really look forward to answering any questions that you may have. And I know that a few have already submitted questions, and I hope that you don't fall asleep like that dog in the background in Alex's picture there. But let me just go ahead and do the legal disclaimer part first. The only thing that I would ask about the questions is not to make them too specific. I would only ask that questions be sort of generalized. Don't say something like, I entered this date, I left, and I came back in this date. I would just say, what do the rules say for somebody who's left for a short period or something like that? And also every single slide that we have today, I really could drill down and talk about 10 minutes on each slide, individual slide. I'm very long-winded when I speak. So I'm gonna really try to speak like an auctioneer today and really just flow through the different slides. But if you have a specific question, by all means, please do ask, but do not take what we're gonna say today as an apples to apples substitute for actual legal advice, because again, we're gonna keep it pretty general today. And educators as well, please still have students consult with a legal advisor or somebody that's a licensed professional on this. We're going to share the PowerPoint, of course, and it is all valid information, but I would just say do not share the information that's on the PowerPoint as though it's a substitute for specific situations that students may arise. And I might answer a specific question pertaining to a specific situation, but that same answer might not be applicable to something that's related, but not completely exactly the same. And so there's a lot of intricacies. And so a lot of things will need the advice of a licensed attorney. That being said, we'll go ahead and move on to the next slide. And I'm really happy to do this because this is really impacting real people that we're seeing today. An estimated 300,000 students are now eligible that haven't had the chance to apply in the last 3 years. And so we'll get into why that is. So immigrant youth pushed for the program. And in 2012, the then Obama administration did an executive order that introduced the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. Everybody calls it DACA. That protects young immigrant youth who have arrived before 2007, have stayed out of trouble. Specifics as to what are the specific eligibility requirements here in a few minutes. And so from 2012 until 2017, about 750,000 immigrant youth applied for and received DACA status. Today, that number is closer to around 650,000 because some have legalized status, some have decided not to renew status, and so right now there are about 650,000 immigrant youth who have DACA status. And then in 2017, the then Attorney General Jeff Sessions made an announcement that DACA is terminated. So as of that date, which is an important date, we'll keep circling back to September 5th, 2007, the United States government decided that they were no longer going to receive or process new DACA applications. And so immigrant youth sued the federal government, saying that you cannot just end the program just by saying it's unconstitutional. You have to show your reasonings, you have to give us notice, you have to really follow proper rules and procedures in order to end the DACA program. And I remember many immigrant youth that I know and work with were on pins and needles when that decision was about to come out. Everybody knows late June is when the Supreme Court issues their decisions. And so on that day, to the surprise of many, the Supreme Court decided in favor of DACA and ruled that the program was not ended correctly. If we can go to the next slide, please. And so because the DACA program was not ended correctly, the Supreme Court, they remanded, they sent the case back down to the lower courts. And in the interim, on July 28th, 2020, then acting Secretary Chad Wolf, he says, we reviewed the Supreme Court decision, but here's what we're going to do. We're still not going to allow new DACA applications to be processed. We're still not going to allow advanced parole, and I'll explain a little bit more about advanced parole, but in essence, it is to allow DACA status youth to be able to apply to leave the United States with advanced permission to be able to return to the United States based on having the proof showing that you are either going to study abroad, work abroad, or there's a humanitarian purpose for you to have to leave the United States in order to come back in. And so they decided they were not going to do that. And so about a month later, they were sued again. And they were saying, you cannot do that. That Wolf memo is not valid. And so if we can go to the next slide, please. And so the lower court, the Eastern District of New York, on December 4th, just last week, made a decision that USCIS has to start accepting new applications, and that advanced parole is going to be back in order, and that the September 5th, 2017 rules for DACA are going to be restored, and that right now around 68,000 immigrant youth have received 1-year work permits. And so part of this ruling is that now automatically those work permits are going to be converted to 2-year work permits. And so starting this past Monday, for the first time in over 3 years, the United States government is now accepting new applications for DACA status. So 300,000 immigrant youth that have not been able to apply since September 5th, 2007 are now going to be eligible to apply for DACA status for the first time. I've done a few new initial DACA applications this week, and I would be remiss if I didn't point out that one of the students just yesterday that I met with, she graduated from one of the big Johnson County school districts, and she says, I want to be a psychologist, but I have not gone to school for this last year because of my status. And so she's decided that she was going to work until she can either have some sort of legal status, try to figure out her path forward. And so I fully believe, after screening everything, that she is eligible and is going to be able to win DACA status. And so these are, again, real people here in our communities, DACA, HDF scholars, and those that are in every district in our metro area, that this is going to have a huge impact in many lives moving forward. And so who qualifies for DACA? And so again, the December 4th ruling says pre-September 5th, 2017 rules are the rules that are going to be in effect. And so it's very much the same as the initial rules that came out when the program was announced in the first place on June 15th, 2012. So on this slide here, it's a very important slide detailing who qualifies, and it is a bit specific, but there could still be little intricacies, little details that could have many questions from you. So by all means, if you have questions about who qualifies, look at this slide and then ask any questions that you would like. But the first rule that we'll go over is that you had to have been under 31 years of age on June 15th, 2012, and 15 or older today. And so because of that rule, 15 or older, many immigrant youth who were 14 on September 5th, 2017 were not eligible to apply. You have to be 15 in order to apply. And if you do the math, what that means is that many juniors in high school today were under 15 on September 5th, 2017. So many juniors, many sophomores, many freshmen in high school do not have legal status because they were not eligible to apply prior to turning age 15. And so that's what we're seeing today with our initial applications, are those that were under 15 when the program ended on September 5th of 2017. The second bullet, arrival into the United States before June 15th, 2007. Again, these are the rules as announced on June 15th, 2012. And so on that day, they said we have to show 5 years of presence here, which means from 2012, 5 years before that was 2007. So those are still the rules that are in order today in 2020. So what that means is that we have to show proof that someone has been here since June 15th, 2007. And the sub-bullet there says continuous presence in the United States since June 15, 2007. That means you cannot have left the United States since 2007 with one exception, which is for a brief innocent trip outside of the United States. And so if someone has left the United States since June 15, 2007, that it does not mean 100% that the person is not eligible for DACA, but please consult with an attorney to go over exact dates and proof of showing the reasons why someone had to leave the United States. There's a lot of different intricacies if someone has left since June 15, 2007. So again, it doesn't make someone ineligible, but please consult with someone if you know someone or if you yourself have left since June 15, 2007. But started living in the United States permanently before that date. And so depending on when someone is born, presence before the age of 16 is going to mean different years for different people. So somebody born in the late 80s will need to show proof of presence here before age 16, so evidence from the late 1990s or the early 2000s. Then presence in the United States on the date that the program was announced, June 15th, 2012. And then that sub-bullet there, no lawful presence on June 15th, 2012. So what that means is that you say for instance, a parent has a work visa, and as part of that work visa comes with eligibility to have your children or maybe spouse accompany you. So say someone arrives in the United States in 2007 for a work visa, and they keep on renewing the work visa, which allows the children to benefit from that work visa as well. What this rule is saying is that you can't decide that I am going to stay in the United States after June 15th, 2012, and decide that I'm going to violate the terms of my visa by overstaying that visa so that I can benefit from the DACA program. So anybody who was in lawful status on June 15th, 2012 is not eligible for DACA. This is an important one as well for many of the students that many of the educators will be working with. You must be currently enrolled in school or a high school graduate or have obtained a GED or high school equivalent. So here, the real basic easy rule is that if you have graduated from high school, you qualify. It's going to be a permanent qualification for, at least for this rule. If you've already graduated high school, you're qualified. If you're currently enrolled in school, you qualify today for DACA status. However, that has to be tied to either in 2 years from now, in order to renew, you must still be enrolled in high school or have graduated from high school or gotten a GED or high school equivalent. So what kinds of GEDs? I saw a question pop up there, so I'll go ahead and address that. It depends. The easiest way to say it is a program that is accredited through the state that is an official program in order to get a GED or a high school equivalent that is approved by the state. On the KCK side, many people that I've worked with have been part of the 500 Reach program. And so programs that are similar to the 500 Reach. There was another question as well. And that question was, how long do I have to be in school in order to apply? So for instance, if one wants to enroll into one of the accredited programs, all we need is proof. It could be within the first few days of someone having enrolled into a program, but if you have proof of enrollment into a GED program or a high school equivalent program, you would be eligible to say, I am currently enrolled and pursuing my high school diploma or GED. And then another important point would be the last one here. No felonies. Any felony convictions disqualify somebody from eligibility. Less than 3 misdemeanors. There are quite a few rules on what qualifies as a misdemeanor. How many days in jail might somebody be expected? What I would advise everyone on this phone call, if either you or somebody you know meets all of the other qualifications, but it is this issue where there's some sort of criminal history, I would not try to determine eligibility until a licensed attorney really drills down and looks into what kind of criminal history, where it falls in these categories of misdemeanors versus significant misdemeanor. They also say that a DUI or domestic violence or any kind of conviction where somebody can be placed in jail for a long period of time, like a year or so, would qualify as a significant misdemeanor. So there's a lot of discretion as well. The United States government can say you're eligible, but we don't believe you merit our weight, our favor in exercising discretion in your case. And so unfortunately, we've had a few cases where there were a few misdemeanors and the government decided not to offer DACA status because of criminal history. So by all means, please consult an attorney if that last bullet point impacts your situation. And we can go on to the next slide.
And we will get to your questions here about halfway through the presentation. We'll stop and answer some of the questions that you've shared on the chat. So feel free to keep sharing them. We might answer some of them as Raymond continues to do the presentation. So thanks for your question.
And so the next one is benefits of applying. So if you look at the pictures there, let's see, what do we have? We have a work permit, there's a briefcase. Those who apply will be eligible for work, and it's for a 2-year period. The DACA program allows one to request a social security number, which is also needed in order to work validly under our United States government. The social security number will say not valid without work authorization, which is the work permit itself. It's an actual card. The vehicle there looks like it's from the 1970s, but if one has DACA status, you can request a driver's license. The states have to accept driver's licenses, and many DMV clerks do not know what a DACA card is, and so a lot of times we have to troubleshoot in order to get make sure that someone gets approved for their driver's license. It provides defense to deportation. The United States government cannot remove someone who is in DACA status. They can order a removal, but ordering removal is different than actually removing someone. And so if someone is in immigration court proceedings, please consult an immigration attorney, because that person does have a strong defense to deportation and would have to work within the court system to make sure that the person is protected, is not deported, removed from the United States. The government can request to end someone's DACA status, and I think that's the next slide, but we're not ready for the next slide yet. Many scholarships, excuse me, many scholarships allow, well, many say you must be a US citizen or a legal resident of the United States. However, after 2012, many scholarships have said we're going to do citizens, legal residents, but also we're going to open up our scholarship programs to DACA students. And so many local private scholarships explicitly say open to those with DACA status. Shout out to HDF that allows scholarships for even those without DACA status, and we wish more would do so. But be on the lookout. Those who do have DACA, there are other more plentiful opportunities to apply for free money. Just of note, as a side note, in the Biden administration transition website, one of the goals of the Biden administration through executive order is to try to see if DACA students may be finally eligible for FAFSA aid. And so that it's not in the books today, but be on the lookout. There might be some movement on whether DACA students may be able to apply for FAFSA in the future. And of course, that means grants, work study, et cetera, Pell Grants, et cetera, et cetera. And here's the bullet point where it kind of goes a little bit more specifically into advanced parole. Advanced parole just basically means advanced permission not to leave the country, but permission to return to the country after a brief visit to either travel outside of the United States, to work outside of the United States, or for a humanitarian reason. I see your question, Eileen. Let's see. So number one, let's see, you would need a valid current passport in order to travel outside of the United States. So right now, the consulates, it's a little bit backlogged because of the virus, but I do believe the consulates here in Kansas City can work with one to process passports, but you have to give them a call and work with them to get in, because it's limited availability to enter the consulates right now. One would need some sort of proof some sort of proof showing what is the need to travel outside the United States. Is it to work? Is it to study? So study abroad programs would most students that are accepted into a study abroad program eligible to leave with advanced parole outside of the United States. Humanitarian reasons would be not for a vacation. So at the bottom there, you can't just say, I want to visit a beach area or a resort. You would have to have a reason. And the most common reason, unfortunately, is that there's a family member who is ill outside of the United States. And so one would need proof. So a doctor's letter or a medical record. Also very important here is that the government does not accept any documents that are not in English. So any document that is submitted has to be translated into English. In my experience, very rarely does advanced parole come with an interview, and that goes for DACA as well. DACA and advanced parole almost always do not come with an interview. So everything has to be established by the paperwork that is submitted to the government in order to show the government, this is my DACA status, this is my reason I want to travel abroad. And usually if it's a non-emergency, advanced parole takes around 90 days in order to be processed. So I would say right now, at least 90 days before one hopes to travel outside the United States, one should apply for advanced parole. If there is an emergency, somebody who is ill outside the United States, we can approach the government and have an in-person submission of advanced parole in order to hopefully get somebody the ability to have an approved advanced parole within a day or two. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. And so we always advise people, don't buy your ticket first to leave the country before you apply for emergency advanced parole. Do it in the other order, get the permission to travel, then purchase the ticket to travel abroad. Alex, I'm not sure if you're screening the questions, if there were any other specific questions on advanced parole.
Well, there is one that says, does DACA allow students to participate on school field trips outside of the US? And I think you've already answered that, but just to clarify that.
So like a field trip, so it's
I'm not sure if that's considered like, study abroad, or if it's just, Carla, do you mean like a short trip, like a 1 week thing, or do you mean like a semester study abroad?
And so I guess it's just to delineate, I think like a travel, like either a spring break trip or things like that would not qualify. If there is any way to tie it to actual study, like a study program, or if it's in college, I'm hard pressed to think of a high school field trip that would be enough to qualify for advanced parole, unfortunately. College, I think, if it's tied to a study or a degree program, would be more likely to be approved. We've been very creative. I'll just tell you, I hope I'm not, actually I'm not, I already got permission, but somebody was in a beauty pageant, and it was like competing from the United States with every other country, and the beauty pageant was outside of the country. And so it was, we tried to say it was for work purposes that the person wished to travel outside the United States because they were seeking a career in modeling. And so the person was approved. So if one is entering a beauty contest, by all means, let's try to work something out to travel outside the United States. But to think of a field trip I would just say we can talk more about it. I don't want to say hard no, but I think it would be a little bit difficult.
Eric, we're going to get to your question here in just 1 second. So I think that's coming up. Are you ready for the next slide?
I sure am. Thank you. And of course, DACA doesn't necessarily mean just because it exists that everybody should apply, or that everybody, it's not a necessary program. It's a tremendous opportunity for many, but there are risks of applying. Number one of the things that people have been scared for these last 4 years is just sharing information with the United States government. that's a fearful thing. And so by all means, we here at our office, we don't force anybody to apply, but if one wishes to apply and you see those benefits and you do the benefit risk analysis and apply, by all means, we're here to assist as much as we can. Under the current administration, if an application is denied, the Department of Homeland Security could initiate deportation proceedings. What we believe might happen, we're still waiting, there's no guarantee, but we believe this first bullet point here may be taken out under the new Biden administration. So our hope would be that if someone gets denied, that's just the end of the road. Somebody gets denied, maybe can reapply, that the government would not reinitiate or initiate for the first time deportation proceedings. One of the other big risks is that after approval, and we've seen it happen, where people can lose DACA status. You can lose DACA status, again, if you're enrolled in high school today, but not enrolled and you didn't graduate and you're not enrolled 2 years from now, you would not be eligible to apply if the government sees that you're no longer eligible for DACA status. But again, I would say talk to an attorney. I guess I'm going to keep going back to that statement. If there is either issues or gaps in going to school, perhaps we can try to renew someone's DACA status. Any kind of criminal convictions, or the government believes one is a threat to national security, or if they see evidence of gang affiliation. And I've seen it happen that the government searches social media. And if sees pictures of somebody throwing up a gang sign, that can come up in the future, or the government has ways of trying to determine whether somebody may not be eligible for DACA status. If they find out in the future that some of the information on your application was not valid, they can take away your DACA status. And if somebody leaves without advance parole, leaves the United States without advance parole, that is a disqualifier if the government finds out that one left without advance permission. Next slide, please. Was there a question, Alex, or are we okay to move on to how can one apply for DACA?
We're going to pause here to answer a couple of the questions, and I know that you will answer them as we continue to go along, but let's just go ahead and start. We had from Marta, what if you left the US before renewing your DACA status this year and you're now in Mexico? Can you come back and reapply?
One would have to show continuous presence in the United States since June 15th, 2007 to the present. Now, depending on the reason why somebody left the United States and for how long somebody left the United States, there might be some wiggle room to try to protect DACA eligibility. But if it's been more than 90 days, unfortunately, I don't see a way that somebody who has left the United States for more than 90 days would be eligible to come back in and apply for DACA from outside of the country.
Thanks. And there's been a couple of questions about documentation. Whenever your documentation is translated over to English, does it need to be notarized to be official?
No, just make sure that every word is translated correctly and have somebody sign and say, I am certified to translate, or I certify that I have directly translated this document from English to Spanish. We do it here in our office, and we do not place a notarization on the birth certificate. There are many documents that we do, but on a birth certificate, we have a form that just directly translates birth certificates word for word from English, from any language into English, and that is enough.
Okay, thank you. Next question from Danya. If the individual has graduated, goes to college, and decides to take a break during their college career, does this take away their DACA once they receive it? Once
one graduates from high school, such a person, at least for that point, that requirement for DACA is going to remain eligible under the current rules. There's nothing that can take that away. Any breaks are perfectly okay, as long as the person graduated from high school.
Okay, thank you. Question from Caleb. So I arrived to the US last year, exactly June 2019. Am I still eligible for DACA? Also, I have an appointment in a court in June 2021. I think this is one of those specific ones. Do you want to briefly address it and then we can expand on it afterwards?
For DACA, one has to have arrived before June 15th of 2007. So unfortunately, we have to meet every single requirement. So many who might have entered before turning age 16 might not have entered before 2007. And so we need to show every single requirement has been met. So June 2019 is not going to be long enough in order to qualify.
And to that point, there was a question that a scholar submitted in advance that was asking if that's the case, do you have any idea if the program is going to be expanded where people who arrived more recently would qualify? Is there any word of that yet?
Well, there's a good precedent because in 2014, the Obama administration attempted to expand eligibility for DACA, that for those who arrived, I believe the 5 years were going to go back to 2010. So the program was written through an executive order, a memo from the Department of Homeland Security. And so we can always push for changes to the DACA program in the next administration. I imagine there will be a push, so be on the lookout. This program was created because because immigrant youth pushed for DACA, and DACA students sued the government to keep the program alive. So it may be those who wish to expand DACA in the future that are going to make it happen. And so right now, the rules are only going back to the 2012 rules, which say arrival has to be before June 15th, 2007.
Okay, that answers a few other questions. Some folks are asking, they say they came in 2014 or 2015. So that would be a no, correct?
I believe so, not knowing all the details. Right now, the rule is arrival before June 15, 2007.
Okay. So the anonymous question who asked that, it is 2015. So I guess it depends on the month.
Well, I would say if someone can establish that one was here before June 15th, 2007, I would say it's probably a specific question to take a look at the specifics of the case in order to determine whether there's any gaps in presence in the United States, so that one potentially might be able to find a way to apply.
Okay, thank you. We'll go ahead and do just one more for now because we have a lot of other info to cover. And since this is being recorded, we'll go back and get the answers for you and share them out via an email. Okay, so there is one that says, for someone who has DACA and entered without inspection when they first entered to the United States, would returning to the US with advanced parole clear that initial enter without inspection?
Generally speaking, yes. Generally speaking, whenever the government asks, how did you last enter the United States? You no longer say my last entry was before 2007 without permission. One would say my last entry was with advanced parole, with DACA status on the date of the last entry with advanced parole, which could have benefits in the future applying for legal residency in the United States. So I'll keep it very general without knowing the specifics of everything with that specific question.
Awesome, thanks. So let's go ahead and move on how to apply for DACA.
Absolutely. So I'll be very, very quick here. Again, we kind of discussed it earlier. One has to show every year of presence here since June 15, 2007. Every day that goes by, it's going to get harder for people to go way back in time. People might have been 2 or 3 years old back in 2007 that are 15, 16 today. And so 2007, we're looking at possibly things like vaccinations, things like early Children's Mercy Hospital visits, any kind of postnatal care, anything that shows that one needed to have, because many people did enter when they were a month or 2 or 3 months old, and so evidence from that category will be necessary. Sometimes people will have to look for evidence of their parents, for instance, rent contracts where everyone who lives there is named on the rent contract. And then, of course, there's preschool and kindergarten school records are going to be very, very important. And a very few, I think, of our 300,000 that are eligible today will have much work history, if at all, in order to meet the qualification, that requirement there. Evidence of presence prior to the age of 16. So for a lot of youth, it'll be the same evidence for the same years. And then you must show presence in the United States on June 15th, 2012, the date that the program was announced. Next slide, please.
Sorry about the slides. It's just my mouse is kind of going over. Is this the one?
Yeah, we can go there. Let's see. So immigration history evidence, if one has ever had any kind of immigration court proceedings or run-ins with ICE, or if someone was a minor where their parents had a run-in with ICE and the youth was present with a parent, might come into play, and any kind of applications that have been filed in the past as well. If you can go one slide before, I think we did miss one. So education evidence. So again, we discussed this, proof of current enrollment. Many educators here will be getting asked for certified copies of a transcript. And that serves as very strong evidence of someone's presence here. If someone can get their transcripts and it shows, you know, kindergarten through 12th grade, all the better to show evidence of presence here. Many are submitting copies of diplomas. And so the next slide after this one. Well, next slide.
This one.
And so some of the other items that one might need, of course, is a birth certificate. Oh, we're on criminal history. So certified court dispositions. So we want to be able to show the result of any kind of run-in with law enforcement. And just from experience, that's why I put it in the slide here. Many people tell me, whatever happened a long time ago, or my attorney took care of it. We still need to see any and all paperwork. A lot of times, such records, they're not erased. And they stay when the government takes your fingerprints, it comes up. And if they say, how come you didn't disclose this? Or if you didn't disclose this, we could deny your application. So you want to make sure that it's all good if it was taken care of, but we need to see that, and we need to submit it to the government to say, this is an allegation, this was a charge, but it was dismissed. And here's the paperwork showing that it was dismissed. Next slide, please. So we also need to show birth certificates, and again, translated into English if the birth certificate is not in English. Your ID with photo. So many people do not have a driver's license currently, so other things can work. A matricula card, a passport, a school ID will work. The government requests 2 passport photos at a pharmacy. You can purchase those at a Walgreens, CVS, or Walmart. And the current fee is $495. The government does not accept cash. And so it would have to be either a check or personal money order. Next slide, please.
Okay, so I'm gonna bring up a couple of the questions that our scholars submitted in advance. And I really do apologize for my mouse is just kind of not letting me, it's kind of doing its own thing. All right, so the first one was, I didn't come into the United States. Well, you've already answered that one. Let's see, do I need a lawyer to start the DACA application process? If I decide to get a lawyer involved, how much will it cost me?
I would start off first by saying there is no requirement or it's not mandated that only an attorney can submit a DACA application to the government. That being said, it's called the I-821D. So the I-821D is the DACA form. To at least look at that form to get a general idea as to what the questions that will be asked. The work permit application is the I-765. So it's always good to get a good idea as to what forms and what information will be required. That being said, I have family myself who have DACA status in different parts of the United States. And so I don't live in the same area, so I've answered questions for my own family, but I also tell my family members, do not fill it out yourself. Please, please, please go to somebody who is licensed, that spent a lot of money and time going to school in order to be qualified to do such work. I wouldn't recommend any of you go and do your own dental work. If you're me, I don't know anything about vehicles. I always go to a mechanic. I don't try to do it myself. And so I would think the same about a DACA application. It's way too important. There's many different technical items that could be applicable, and the risks are great enough that I just would never recommend that somebody do it on their own or with a notario or somebody who's not licensed in order to practice law. The costs vary. There is no uniform cost for an attorney. All of you can shop around. There will be clinics as well in the area that will be done pro bono by immigration attorneys. Be on the lookout for those as well. But by all means, I would say the most important thing is that you go to someone who is trusted, that knows what they're doing, and by all means, feel free to make sure that you're comfortable with an attorney before you move forward with such an attorney.
Okay, we're going to answer just 2 more, and then we'll move on to additional resources and scholarships in the area that DACA and undocumented students can apply for. So if I left for a month for an emergency, could we still apply? So if I left for a month for an emergency.
I think I understand the question, and it depends, but without knowing more, if it is an emergency and one can show documentation that the visit outside of the country was for that emergency and was only for the length of time in order to complete the travel for that emergency. So for instance, if someone has, I mean, and just because I've seen it, a grandparent that is on their deathbed and the person travels for a month, and not 5 months, but for a month, I believe that would be a case that I would say, go ahead and submit an application if you can show the reason for the travel was for a valid emergency, that we have been able to be successful on such cases in the past, and consult with someone who, again, knows what they're doing, and I believe this person would be able to apply.
Thank you. What if your passport just caducated this year and can't get a new one unless traveling to another state? Will I need to get renewed before applying to get DACA?
A passport that is valid is not a requirement for DACA. A passport that is unexpired is a requirement for advanced parole to leave the United States and come back in with DACA status. Many people apply for DACA without even having a passport, but the government does require an ID with your photo on it. So obviously a passport is a valid identity document with your photo on it. But if you don't have a passport, you can use a matricula card. We can use school IDs as well. So a passport not required for DACA, but it is sufficient to meet that requirement to apply for DACA. Not needed for DACA. It is needed for advanced parole.
Thank you so much. And some of this, I've heard it a lot of times over the years, and it's still, a lot to digest. So scholars, if you're feeling overwhelmed with all of this information, just take a deep breath. We'll go back and have additional workshops, and I'll work with you one-on-one. We'll try and get your resources in the community as well. So this is a lot. We know that. Again, we're recording it, so you will get to see it again. And then I'm going to go ahead and share some resources with you so that you're aware of opportunities coming up. So of course, with the Hispanic Development Fund, our annual scholarship opens up every January 1st and closes on March 1st. It is open, like we mentioned, to undocumented and DACA-mentored students from the greater Kansas City area. Before you can apply to our scholarship, you must go through the Greater Kansas City Community Foundation, which we're an affiliate of. And all of these links are clickable. So once I send them to you, you can just go directly on there. If you go to our website, We have a lot of resources that, keeping in mind all the challenges that our families are facing with the pandemic and, doing school from home and not having a lot of resources in Spanish. We went ahead and we created some resources for you all, and we have some tutorial videos in there in English and Spanish. So we have the HDF College Playbook. This is a document that 95% of the information is on there, is applicable and helpful for students regardless of their ethnicity from the greater Kansas City area. We have it's been translated. It's about 30 pages long, and it has all kinds of scholarship opportunities, information about our matching partner schools. Just overall, our colleague, John Carney, he spent a lot of time and effort working on this document, and it really has been life-saving for a lot of, it's been really helpful for our families and our students because it walks you step by step every month what you should be working on in order to be ready to graduate in the spring. Here are these resources for DACA and undocumented students that tells us, also step by step what schools we recommend, which ones are partners with us that do really well in working with our undocumented students, because of course we would never recommend that you go to a school that would charge you international rates, right? So we got to make sure that it's the best interest in our students. But whatever is the best thing for you, that's what we will always advise you to do. So our website is a really great resource. We have the financial aid resources in English and in Spanish. So again, feel free to visit our website, and we will open up our application on January 1st. My contact info is on here. I did want to briefly mention College of St. Mary. They are one of our scholarship matching partners. And what that means is that if you get a scholarship from HDF, College of St. Mary is one of our 23 partners that will also give you an additional scholarship. Now, the reason I'm highlighting them here today is because this is a near full ride scholarship. It is only for women, and it is in Omaha, Nebraska. So for some families, that is something that they really, consider the distance and everything. But, when you look at the near full ride scholarship opportunity, it really is a tremendous opportunity to consider. It's called the Misericordia Scholarship. This year, we're really excited to announce that for Guadalupe Center's high school, undocumented women graduated from College of St. Mary's with assistance from the Pell Project, which is another partner of ours. So the Pell Project is aimed for students who are undocumented and graduated from Alta Vista and do not qualify for Pell Grant. This is a scholarship that is aimed to help said students. And of course, one of our 4 students that I mentioned, this scholar had 21 credit hours this semester, completed it with all A's except for 1 B, and also had a child. So that's a few things that our scholar was dealing with this semester. So we truly have amazing scholars and supports, not just in Kansas City, but in the States and nationwide. This is another opportunity, the Dream US Opportunity Scholarship. Again, these are partners, these are schools that are not in the Kansas City area. So you would need to move to whatever state is offering to offer this support, but it is up to $80,000 in undergraduate scholarship. So definitely check that out. They're going to have an info session next Tuesday, so you can register to attend. And then locally, we have some amazing organizations and folks who are doing the work on the ground every day, a lot of it for free. Shout out to the Kansas Missouri Dream Alliance. They are completely funded by donations and small grants here and there, but it is a youth-led organization, and they do DACA clinics, which means that they have some funds available for you to help you apply for your DACA. And we have some pro bono attorneys, including Mr. Rico, who will help you fill out your application. They are having a clinic next Saturday, so be sure and email them at daca@ksmoda.org if you would like to set up an appointment. It is by appointment only. We also have AIR. You can see El Centro on there. El Centro also has DACA clinics. So lots of awesome resources here locally for you to take advantage of. And last but not least, I would be remiss if I didn't mention United We Dream, which is the largest organization in the country led by immigrant youth. And so they are the reason that DACA exists this day, because they pushed and pushed, like Mr. Rico said, the administration to make sure that they had a pathway to at least, get started and go to school and be eligible to work and get out of the shadows a little bit. So they're going to have 3 sessions next week. And by the end of their 3-part series, they will be able to review all that you need to know and see if you're eligible to apply for DACA. If you're not able to attend, go ahead and still register, because then they'll send you the recordings. So that is the link for United We Dream. Mr. Rico, would you like to say a little bit more about United We Dream real quick? You're on mute.
I saw in the, thank you. I saw in the comments that El Centro also offers DACA clinics, and so they take care of the lawyers as well. That all the person has to do is pay the application fees. United We Dream is a group that I had the honor of serving on the board with, and it is immigrant youth led, and is the group that really pushed for DACA to be around in the first place. It is pushing for the DREAM Act, and is pushing for more than the DREAM Act to legalize all 11 million without legal status today. And United We Dream was a big part of the lawsuits that were challenging the ending of DACA. So they've been around, and the Kansas Missouri Dream Alliance is an affiliate of the National United We Dream, and so the group has been putting out resources all the time about DACA, about trying to open up licenses for those with DACA who want to be nurses and lawyers and doctors and engineers across the United States. And so United We Dream, they're pushing out information. I think Alex is going through some of the other organizations, AIR, El Centro, Guadalupe Centers, KS Mode here locally that are really pushing to open doors. There's the Pell Project as well for scholarships open to undocumented students who want to go to school. And of course, HDF is a resource and is here as well. So there's a lot of resources nationally, locally that are pushing for DACA youth. And so proud to be here today, and by any means, you can reach out to HDF, and they know how to get a hold of me if there's any specific questions that we didn't get to today to troubleshoot. Happy to come back and assist in any way we can moving forward.
Thank you so much. Yeah. And I do want to be respectful of everyone's time. I know we went over. So again, thank you very much for being here today, for all the work that you continue to do to help our community, our scholars, and scholars. We are here for you every day, so do not get discouraged. And when you do, reach out to us, because that's also normal. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to our Executive Director, Mr. Ochoa, to close this off.
This would be the point in the webinar, or if we're all together, that you give these two a really big round of applause. And certainly I get to see Alex work every day, and it's truly one of the privileges of my work day to see how she's able to help our community and work with Raymond. And Raymond really helps us as an organization, as an HDF board member, guide us to make sure we are providing in a way that community impact. But I think Raymond hit on a good point. I was looking at the attendees, and there's lots of representatives of groups that are here to support you. So the biggest thing that we want to just leave with you today is the questions that you don't want to ask us. You don't have to live in the shadows with us. You have a community around you that is here to lift you up, to be there with you, to get questions, to ask questions. But really, whatever we can do to help you on your journey, HDF is there for you. These organizations are there for you, and it's a great ecosystem to be a part of. So thank you all for attending today. We look forward to seeing you continue to do great things and be there for you in all stages of your life. So take care. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Raymond. Phenomenal job. Share this recording. I know she'll send out additional resources, but if you have specific questions, let us know and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. But thank you so much.
También no quiero irme sin mencionar que estamos conscientes que esta sesión fue completamente en inglés, pero tenemos equipo que es bilingüe, así que si usted prefiere que hablemos español, mi información la compartí, entonces no tenga pena, comuníquese conmigo. Y KS Mora, el Centro Air, todos ellos tienen equipo que también hablan español, así que sabemos que para muchas familias es el idioma que prefieren y estamos aquí para servirles. Gracias por todo lo que hacen y que tengan un bonito fin de semana.